I am live. Good to see you all. Just going to make sure it shows up on my Facebook page, and we are good to go. There I am. Perfect. Okay. Feeling very, very called to start sharing key awakening awareness right now. There's so much going on in this world. Things are unraveling. There's a lot of fear and darkness pressing on us, all asking us to awaken so that we can be free. And there's nothing scary about awakening, but without the right information, it gets scary, it gets hard, and it feels like you're being attacked or in some kind of battle. So that's why I felt called to create the Awakening You group, to start the Awakening You series. And the initial start is going to be this live. So this video is entitled Awakening You, the 3 pillars of, or 3 pillars / keys of awakening. So I've been on this journey quite a long time, easily 12 years, probably the last 8, and then the last 3 just so intense that I just about blipped out a few times. Through the journey, I've become aware that there's a web of control in this world. There's a level of darkness that has allowed over a long time, and by God's choice, Spirit's choice, whatever, to fully explore control, compression, trying to squeeze out all human consciousness from all but a few. And to accomplish this, it's happened for many, many thousands of years. Some might even say millennia. It goes back to times like Lemuria and Atlantis and all those pre-civilizations where everything grew, consciousness grew, people started to awaken and expand, and then a level of control came in and smashed everything that was growing, and it wasn't allowed to continue so many times, but that's changing now. So now we're at a point where humanity has no choice but to awaken. Well, they have a choice inside, but the ascending humanity and the full earth is it has to be awakened, or else there'll be nothing left. The compression is so hard. So a few things we need to be aware of before we start this topic. So we come into this incarnation and we design it. We're a fragment of God, a fractal of God. If you don't believe that, that's fine, but this will all be premised on that we're all part of God, and we come here for a human experience in an avatar body, and we come to learn about ourselves, to learn lessons, learn compassion, learn our power where things have fallen apart. And in doing that, we create all these soul contracts with people, and we have these interactions. And a lot of the human experience and the way that the planet has come, there's been a lot of really dense stuff, abuses and turmoils and wars and really crazy dense things. So we've come here and we've taken on a lot of these human experiences so that we could learn and fit into society and have the beliefs. Now, I fully believe that at least the last 100 years or more of incarnation, we've had to come in with a major trauma, some kind of sexual abuse, some kind of violence, something with our parents, something with sisters, brothers, whatever. And it made us small, and it let us fit vibrationally into the interaction of what's going on. And then we're left, as we've grown, we've built up all this armor and protection and stories about what's going on. So the first pillar of awakening is what I call self-responsibility. And it can be a little bit complicated because we've been taught that we're victims to what's going on in the world, and to give that responsibility to somebody else. And then we live outside our power and we complain and we want people to change and make amends and stop doing that, when really we're the creator of our own reality. It puts us so that the tormentor is not within us, or we have no responsibility to what's happened, and then we're left in a powerless situation. I can't do anything about it because that person hurt me, that person was in my life, that person did something to me, etc. And we end up with this blame, this wound, this thing that can't be fixed unless somebody else changes. And that leaves us short-circuited. Basically, the loop of power is outside of us. So they're taking it from us, and we've been hurt and we've been wounded. What self-responsibility teaches is, if we're a fragment of God, we're a fractal of God, we've come here to have a human experience. We created this for ourselves. We are a little bit of everything. This is a big stretch, but if you truly believe that we come from God and we're a fractal of God, that we make contracts with other parts of God, which is really parts of us. Once you start to believe that, we make contracts for people to come in and make really hard situations for us to learn from. And I'm going to explain this right now. It may not vibrate well with you, but the heaviest experience we're ever going to have is the one that's going to teach us the most. So sexual abuse, for example, or some kind of violence that we've had, we create it crushes us. We left with this trauma, which is like a bubble of emotions that's stuck in our heart, and we couldn't deal with it in that moment. We couldn't be violent, we couldn't stand up for ourselves, we couldn't whatever. So we have this pain, suffering, fear, doubt, anger, frustration, etc., that we just push down. And then we build all these rules so we never have to go in that. We can't stand anybody that yells, we can't be in a dark room, we can't do these things, and we create this bubble that insulates us from our power and taking our self-responsibility. And it makes us feel small, and a lot of us go into addictions, alcohol, pornography, narcissism, all these kind of things, and we go down there, and then it festers for a while, and it gets really, really dark, but we hit bottom. We bounce off bottom. Maybe we tried to kill ourselves. Maybe we had all these really bad things happen, and we have this really bad shame about ourselves. And then one day you hit bottom, you keep hitting bottom, and then one day you're forced to make a choice. And it's going to be the biggest choice of your life, because it's going to be like, okay, I'm going to start not drinking alcohol anymore. I'm going to start setting boundaries in my sexuality with partners, or just choosing better. And this thing crushes us until the point we become like a diamond. And then eventually we rise up. But when we're in the point of rising up, we have to stop choosing to be a victim, saying that person did something to me, or the government, or the economy, or the world, or my upbringing, or whatever. And eventually you have to say, I own this. I own this. I am taking self-responsibility. I brought this into my life for some reason. It's not happening to me. It's happening for me. And then we can start to rise up, and we can take our power back, and we can sit on top of the pile of all the shit that we're sitting on and say, okay, why is this happening? What boundary do I have? What lack of awareness to what my power is letting this continue to happen to me? And it'll be messy sometimes. It'll make us cry. It'll make us angry. It'll make us frustrated. But eventually, once we start to take responsibility and say, okay, why is this happening? All of a sudden, this calm comes, and you start to see a way out, instead of now this big weight on top of us of some big ogre sitting on us. They did this thing to us. They hurt me. I'm wounded. Nobody's going to come and save you. The only person that's going to save you, your parents, and everybody's going to try and help you and fix you and all this kind of stuff, and it drives you nuts. Eventually, the only person that can make the choice is you. That's the epitome of self-responsibility. I am choosing to take my power back. I am choosing to plot a path forward. And it's all about choice. Once you've chosen not to be a victim anymore and give your power away, you're going to feel empowered. And it might be scary for the first little bit, but eventually you're going to be empowered. And then you're going to make a next choice. You're going to climb up the ladder. Choose 2, choose 3, choose 4. So that's self-responsibility. No victim. Everything's happening for me, not to me. And then getting that awareness inside to understand why this thing is happening. And then making a choice so that that doesn't happen again. And that may be a tricky one. It may be complicated. You may have to stand up for yourself. It may require you, but the whole universe is going to support you in that task. They're not sitting there and watching you just die. They're waiting for you to take that first step, that first rung of the ladder, and they're going to help and cheer you on all the way through. Now, the second one is accountability. And this one's a big one, because once you're into self-responsibility, you're going to have a lot of anger and a lot of frustration and lots of pain and lots of armors that you built up in your body. And you're going to want to, once again, blame someone and attack and make it outside yourself. And if you surround yourself with good and loving people, these people are going to support you and hear you. But if you're trying to do that with a partner or whatever that maybe not growing at the same time as you or whatever, you're going to want to yell and scream and maybe hit and whatever. But I'm going to tell you right now that doing that outside yourself again is only hurting your relationships. It's what I call emotional intelligence, having the awareness that smashing and hurting and yelling and screaming and saying fuck you or an asshole or whatever is not accountable to yourself. Because in my personal experience, I've done this before. It can take 3 months to 3 years or maybe completely broken to try and rebuild a relationship with someone that I just lost it on. So the accountability is now being personally aware that whatever comes out of your mouth is going to create your reality, and it can smash and crash and hurt. And you've been the witness of this. How many people that are friends of yours, when you brought up things they didn't want to hear, they got all pissed off and they all fought you and other things. They weren't being accountable. They were just trying to project and get rid of so that they didn't have to deal with it. And nobody wins in that. So accountability is now starting to say, or even better way to put it is to be the observer just before you talk. So have this like 3-second loop, and the higher part of you is sitting back here and says, is this going to give me any value? Or is this just going to be my pain coming out? Because there's going to be an opportunity to have your pain come out, but it can be in private. It doesn't have to be shared. It doesn't have to be vomited all over somebody to make it work. Or you can have somebody that's going to witness and hold space for you, and you negotiate that before and say, I'm going to be really angry and frustrated. And that person's going to say, okay, well, don't hit me. I'll sit here and listen to every word you say, and I'll have compassion for you. But in that level of accountability, all of a sudden we can transition through our pain. We can say everything we wanted to say. We don't have to make it personal, but sometimes you just need to be witnessed in that, holy shit, this was a bad experience. Holy shit, was I the only one? Holy shit, is this awful? And sometimes you can't move through it until you've been witnessed. So accountability is, how do you deal with your triggers? I've got a good video I'll share again on what triggers are and how you migrate through them. But if you don't have these 3 pillars that we're talking about, they're going to be so much harder to go through. Because if you don't have self-responsibility and you want to blame someone, you're not going to get anywhere. If you don't have accountability and you're screaming and vomiting all over someone and they feel completely disrespected, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, the third one is vulnerability. The third one is the most important, because this is where the healing comes in. Most people want to be closed, private people, and it's like, it's scary. My experience is ugly and dirty and messy, and nobody's had the same experience, and I can't share that with anyone because they'll think I'm broken. Well, it's exactly the opposite of that. You're going to find out in this world that so many people have been raped and abused and had narcissistic parents and sisters and brothers and exes that manipulated them and caused all this kind of stuff. And the more that you can speak openly about it, and the less and less that you feel closed off or that you have to hide or that there's something wrong with you, the more you're going to transition through, and the more the magic's going to happen. Really beautiful, amazing magic is going to come from you sharing those emotions, getting them out of your body, expressing them. Expressing them doesn't have to be in words. It can be gagging on the feeling and just letting it come out, and or it can be crying, closing up in your pillow and just screaming into the pillow until that void gets filled or gets emptied. And all of a sudden you don't have all this rage and grief and frustration and pissiness or whatever. Now all of a sudden there's this big, wide, empty expanse. And then you can breathe in the light, breathe in the love. And now you talk to other people, and you're going to, I see it all the time. People will be sitting in circles and they'll share that, oh, okay, I was sexually abused as a child by my father or whatever. And then 8 other people in that same circle, might be 20, 30 people, will say, I had that too. And they'll be like, oh, it's okay to talk about it now. It's like, I'm not the only one. And then they'll share, and then those groups will go and talk about it and heal. And and be that space holder for other people. And by hearing their expansion and by hearing them speak vulnerably about this thing that made them feel small or bad or not good enough or dirty or whatever it is, you'll go and you'll share it, and those people will expand, and then all of a sudden it'll be this healing of the collective that, holy shit, more people had this. And it doesn't have to be ugly, it doesn't have to be messy, it doesn't have to be you blowing up or whatever, but just the vulnerability to talk about that something bad happened to me, and it doesn't make me bad, it was just me participating in reality, in this humanity at this time. Magic will happen. So looking for opportunities to be vulnerable with people. If you're not comfortable with being vulnerable in a big group, go find a couple of people in a small group. Go sit in a couch in the corner with somebody and talk to them. And hey, it's like, hey, can I share something? You're going to be surprised. The most beautiful thing that you can do is to open up to someone you don't even know about something deeply vulnerable. And you're not worried about what they think or care because you're really not invested whether they're your friend or not. And you can share the most crazy intimate stuff with somebody that you've never met and then walk away and feel refreshed. It's kind of like what the church does with confessions and stuff like that. You go to a priest and they absolve you of it and you move on. But we don't need a priest. We just need somebody that's willing to listen. Sometimes we just want to be observed. Like, I don't know, there's so many things in my life. It's like, holy crap, how many people actually felt and went through this darkness and disgustingness or whatever. And I always felt so broken or whatever. And the more and more I talk about it and the more I share, the more and more people say, hey, fuck, I felt that same way. Oh, that was awful. How'd you get through it? What did you change? And then you learn these new things and you learn better ways to get through it for next time. And you can share that with somebody else. And by being vulnerable, that person might reflect and say, hey, I had that happen in my life too. Did you know that a parent that's a narcissist had a wound? They learned as a self-protection mechanism, or that's how love is you kind of push and pull and poke and prod and get people off balance, and then they feel safe. They're feeling control when they're really not even in control. It's just a big messy mess. So these are the three pillars, and they all build on each other. Without self-responsibility or accountability, can you be vulnerable? Without having people around you that are in self-responsibility and accountability, can you be safe being vulnerable with them? You build a community around these things. And that's what Awakening You is. That's what New Perspectives on Reality is. That's what the Awakening Through Sexuality path is. These are all Facebook groups. You go in and you start at a level that resonates with you. And New Perspectives on Reality basically just talks about new ways to look at things so that you can find the self-responsibility in it and no blame. And it's like, okay, this is why this happened. This is why I feel this way. And then you start to unwind it, and then the fear goes away. The other things go away. And then all of a sudden you're ready to be accountable and you want to start talking about it. And you want to start being vulnerable about it. With these three things, you can get through anything. And to build a community around these three things makes it amazing for people to be able to transition through this really messy process of awakening right now. It's dirty. It's filled with every possible crime, trauma, sorrow, grief, emotion, darkness, whatever you want to call it, has pieces of this. And we're all transiting through it. We're all having to look at it, and we're all having to make peace with it. And 9 times out of 10, that person that did that thing isn't going to come and make amends. So once you've gone through this process, you may make amends with somebody that you did this to in the future, but 9 times out of 10, it's a personal journey. And you can't guarantee that other person's going to go to that same level of awareness. They may have been at a really deep, dark level of awareness to be able to have that experience, which was serving them in some way as well as serving you. And it's crazy what we do with trauma and all these things. Most criminals, most other people, they had some element of trauma in their life to be able to even have them express this experience to someone else. So it started even before them. It started at birth. It started with lineage trauma. It started with family. And I'm not forgiving it. I'm just saying this is the way the world works. All these levels of vibration all line up to give experiences so that we can learn. And once we accept that we are learning here, and it's some of the hardest things we're ever going to learn, it's well past university level, etc. But once we can get that awareness and we can start taking self-responsibility, being accountable with how we express after that, and then being vulnerable to release the things that are no longer serving, we start to lighten, we start to get higher vibration. We are less locked in the cage of I'm wrong, I did something wrong, I'm bad, whatever. And we open up to I'm a facet of God, a fractal of the universe, of source. And I start being an example, showering my light, giving a positive perspective so that others can transit through more quickly and with less struggle, more ease and grace. And that's what Awakening You is all about, is to give people the core elements. If you can implement these 3 things, and they're fucking hard sometimes, how can I be self-responsible? Look at what they just did, blah, 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 blah. And you can start to have love for yourself when you're feeling those things, and you can start to become aware that there's a deeper purpose sometimes, and you got to dig down 3 levels. Sometimes it can be 3-4 years before you even realize that darkest dark was the lightest light. It kicked you in the ass so hard that you eventually made a choice. That's what sometimes has to happen in this world. So have love for yourself, start to implement these 3 things. And if any of it doesn't make any sense or it's confusing, come talk to me. My door's always open. Send me a private message. We'll talk about it. But once you perfected your awareness of these 3 things, you can get through anything. And that's my role, is to share this with you and help you have a chance to get through this as quickly as possible. Because I took 10 years. I want people way less time. And that's also why I have the Awakening Through Sexuality side. That's a different path for some people, but some people want to heal through this stuff as quickly as possible. And using our sexual energy and our creation energy there can be massively quick to move through. It just kind of smashes through some of the stuff and the walls and gets the emotions out really quickly. But it requires us to go into something that's very shame and guilt ridden. So there's multiple paths up this mountain. So hopefully this resonates deeply. And like I said, if you have any questions, post them below. And I love you all. I'm looking forward to you growing and getting through this as quick as possible. Have a great day. Thanks for everybody that was watching on the live. See you soon.